Hyperdrive Hockey is brought to you by the Game Over Network. Make sure to follow us on YouTube at Game Over Network and catch Hyperdrive Hockey in audio format on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other good streaming platform. Hello, beautiful citizen of the frozen pond planet. Welcome to another episode of Hyperdrive Hockey. I'm Max Venut alongside Daphne Malbeuf and Kevin Laramie. I hope you had a wonderful weekend filled with beautiful hockey in all its form. Make sure to catch us on YouTube, Game Over Network. Give us a follow. Please drop a like on the episode, even a comment, even if it's just to say hi, even if to say to Daph that she has a better cap than me, which she doesn't today, by the way. My cap is absolutely awesome. Or that Kev is wearing a pretty cool polo hoodie. Anything is, of course, not only accepted, but welcome. Drop a follow on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you catch your podcast in audio format. Daphne Malbeuf, how are you doing?
Good. Just the fact that you are dissing my cap.
I'm not dissing. I'm uplifting mine. It's an amazing. It's a beautiful. I'm not even telling what it is. People have to watch us on video format.
Well, it's a souvenir from Australia, so I feel like mine is awesome too. But I'm doing pretty good, Max.
Kev, Mr. Polo, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm back from the pool, swimming with my son, so it's a little pool hair day, but it's pretty chilly, so I'm like, okay, I need some comfort today, so I got my favorite hoodie.
Yeah. So from water polo to the polo fit.
Exactly.
Understanding.
Yep.
I doubt you played water polo with your son, but have you guys ever tried water polo? I tried when I was in college, and the technique to like stay afloat with the ball, it is absolutely insane. Water polo players, man, you have to be fit to practice this. It's
when you play, you understand why they have such amazing abs, because
exactly
the core is much needed here. But yeah, it's super fun also. But it's really hard.
Yeah, and you get pulled underwater and stuff like that. If you think reffing is hard, imagine reffing when some people are pulling underwater. Welcome to Hyperdrive Water Polo. No, all jokes aside, of course, we will be talking about everything hockey this week. Apparently, the Russian machine, even when it breaks only a little, because Alex Ovechkin, 2 weeks after breaking his damn leg, was seen on the ice for the Washington Capitol. Patrik Laine is back in Montreal. We have a whole lot to talk about. We will do a second goalie power ranking. We're trying to do goalie power ranking every month. We've got the second edition of the power ranking. But before that, guys, we are at a quarter of a season. And in our last episode, we were talking about how teams at Thanksgiving, at the American Thanksgiving, I apologize, because of course we don't have the same Thanksgiving in Canada. Our Thanksgiving date is much better. That is my take of the day. But we talked about how the teams in the playoff, 80% of them will make the playoff. 80% will end up making the playoffs. Now today, we are at a quarter of a season, which means we're starting to have an eye for who is for real and who is kind of disguised. You know, basically, who's rich and who's Instagram rich. You know, people who you look at and you're like, I feel like we make the same salary. Why can you seem to afford 3 times the amount of things that I do? I call that Instagram rich, you know? Maybe those people, their credit cards are full, their finances are in as steady as your whatever. No judging. No. Well, little.
But fake it till you make it kind of vibe.
Yeah, I wish I had that mentality sometimes. I'm unable. Anyways, we will do this right now with Contenders and Pretenders. So the best team in the National Hockey League. We took 10 teams, not necessarily the 10 best team at the top of the rankings right now, a mix of those who are at the top and those who we feel, even if they're not at the top right now, throughout the past few seasons, have earned the right to be in that discussion. So we will talk about 10 teams, and we will classify them contender. What is a contender? It's a team with an actual shot at the cup. It's a team that doesn't have to pretend that they're a contender. They are. To quote the legendary Tywin Lannister in Game of Thrones, king doesn't have to say he is the king. He just is the king. And pretenders. So a pretender is a team who you might think right now is a contender, but in reality is not. So we will classify those 10 teams, the three of us, and in the end, we will see who has the most contender point and who has the most pretender point. Daph, Kev, are you ready for this exercise?
Oh, I'm so ready.
All right, ladies first, Daph, and we're going to start with the team at the moment of this recording atop the NHL, the Minnesota Wild.
And I feel that they are real contenders because if you're looking at what they've done, they have a highly effective defensive structure. They can score goal, and even more, they can score goal with a supporting cast. And yeah, I feel that like they've allowed the fewest scoring chances, fewest high danger chances. When you're looking at them, it feels like they are there for real. They have a lot of elements that can like make them contenders.
A wild take here, Kevin. Do you agree?
I agree. I agree that the Wild are contenders because also how they're playing is conducive to what we're seeing. I do like that they're playing well, even though they don't get the same amount of high-level performance from a Brock Faber, but Matt Boldy's playing out of his mind, and I think Brock Faber is going to get out of his sophomore slump soon. I have a few rookie cards that praying that he does, and hopefully that does happen. But I do believe Minnesota are there for the long run.
You don't seem to have the same opinion, Max.
It's because I am. We've talked about it. I love the Wild. I mean, they're my favorite team in the West right now. And yesterday I was preparing the show and I was like, I can't put them in contender for one reason. Number one, I don't fully agree Brock Faber's having a slump. I feel like he's playing decently.
Well, yeah, it's compared to last year. Last year was like second rookie of the year. This year's like, it's not, but he's not bad. That's not what I'm saying.
But also, I'm a huge Brock. I fell in love with the guy. As a hockey player, of course. And you know what, with his glasses, Clark Kent, Superman, I love the guy. So maybe it's just this. I'm totally in love with the guy. But here's the thing. To me, the Minnesota Wild is the team that is the most vulnerable to the loss of a single player. If they lose Kirill Kaprizov, and to me is the Hart favorite right now. He's not in betting terms, but he is, to me, my pick right now at a quarter of a season to win the Hart. There are 23 games played. And he is already 14 points ahead of his closest teammates in terms of point. That is Matt Boldy. And because of that, I feel like they would have to make a few key acquisitions around the deadline for me to push them into contender territory. And for that, I have them as pretenders, whereas you both have them as... Oh, I hate myself. All right. The Winnipeg Jets. Now, a bit of a return to hurt for the Jets. They've lost their last 3 games, averaging... less than 2 goals per game in that span. Connor Hellebuck still playing atop of his game. I can't believe this because the start of their season. I'm going to have them in pretenders because it's a bit of the same thing. For me, the Jets would need, just like last season, some key acquisitions to push them into the contender territory. And it's not a diss toward the Jets as much as a testament to the strength of the Western Conference. There are still teams I feel are ahead of them, and I can't have like 10 teams as contenders. So I'm going to have to put them into pretender, a bit like the Wild. They're not that far, though, from contender. Daph.
I feel like I've put it in a contender position because we know that what they can do defensively. We know that they have a genius goalie between the pipes, and I feel like what's changed between the last season is their offense that gets like it got just like they've had like they've had more success than they've had the years before. That's what I wanted to tell you.
And you did it.
And I feel like with the back-to-back first-round exits, it can be like a motivation to keep their egos in check and motivate them all along. So I feel like I'm putting them in a contender's position, but it was a tough one. I admit it was a tough one. They're
starting with two
they're
rough
on my
ones.
bubble.
Yeah. And now Daff is in flight. Is Kevin in flight with the Jets?
I am a bit like you, Max. I'm going to say Pretender, but I'm going to preface it because Pretender versus who they were since the beginning of the season. They're not going to be as hot. They're not going to be that type of team. They might be closer to maybe the first wildcard spot or third in their division. I think throughout the year, it's going to level up a little bit. The other teams are going to level up. They're going to level down, and they might meet each other midway. So that's why I'm using the Pretender, because they're not who they said they were, but they're still going to be pretty good.
Oh, that's beautiful. Kev, I want you to keep going because now we're talking about your team, my man, the Washington Capitals.
I think they're pretenders. I do believe that depending on how long the injury to Ovechkin and how long the supporting cast can keep them up there, I think it might be a wild card situation. And if a team's going to be in the playoff by wild card spot, they have to be pretenders. They're not contenders. And I think Capitals are going to go there.
The Washington Capitals.
I feel that the Pretenders too, like first of all, they weren't pegged to be one of the top metropolitan teams. And, like they did good things since the beginning of the season, but I don't feel they maybe have the fuel, or maybe they're strong enough to keep this way, to be all in all year around. And yeah, it's going to be tough. Like, till the end of the season is going to be tough. So I'm putting them at the Pretenders position.
I want the Washington Capitals to be my Cinderella team this year. I would love the Washington Capitals to make a deep push in the playoffs. With that being said, I'm not yet convinced that they are higher on the list than some other Eastern Conferences teams that, to me, with regards of what they did these past few seasons and how they're playing right now, can't be pushed out of the spot that they are in by the Washington Capitol. And for that reason, I have them as pretenders too. And for the first time, we have a full-on pretender team. We all think that Washington Capitals are pretender and not contenders. And for me, they're all a bunch of pretenders. I'm a doubter. New Jersey Devils, pretenders. For now.
Oh, yeah.
Pretenders for me. They are back to where I thought they were going to be last year. 2 years ago, when the Devils made the playoffs with an amazing season, I was like, all right, this team has arrived. They will be good for the next few years. Last season, injuries, goalie struggles, all those are out now. The New Jersey Devils are a very good team this season. They're as good as I thought they were going to be, but I need to see them at least win a round, go deep in the second round, and even more. And for that reason, I'm not quite ready to put them in contenders yet, but they're really close.
Max, when you have confidence in your team as a teenager, you're like, oh, he's improving. But you're like, he's going to make a mistake that is going to make me doubt of him for a while afterwards. I feel that the New Jersey Devils are at this place right now. They're living up to the expectations, but they're still really, there's still inconsistency. I feel that would eventually maybe destroy them or make take an end of their season. They've been shut out also a bunch of times, and I'm like, is this maybe a suggestion of they lack of depth in scoring? Maybe something that they must address to make a playoff run that is interesting, but I don't see them as contenders. For me, they're still pretenders.
Oh, Kevin, where do you stand on the Devils?
I actually think the Devils are going to be contenders, so I'm going to put them in the contender area because I do think there's a high likelihood of quick growth with the age of the players, and eventually Luke Hughes is going to get out of his little slump, and with his brother Jack's amazing. I think together it's really going to make a difference, and then you have the supporting cast that are there to help them, and they're getting some good goaltending as of right now.
Yeah.
So that helps, and we'll talk about goaltending when we talk about the next team, but I do think that they are contenders for me because they'll become contender over the next month or so in my mind.
Yeah, that's an interesting take and one I can see happening, to be honest. And also, you're right about Jack Hughes. He had a bit of a, by his standard, to be clear, bit of a slow start to this season, and now he's picking things up. And I insist, by his standard, of course.
Yeah. It's just the differential and just a little stats were showing that he's not up to the level of last year, but that's doesn't mean that he's still one of the best defensemen in the league.
For a straight A student, B plus is disappointing, whereas for the C minus student, B plus is amazing, and of course, Jack Hughes is straight student. I'm finally going into the contender territory, and I'm going with the Carolina Hurricanes. You just talk about goaltending. This is the one question mark, but I do believe Piotr can do the job. Freddie Anderson, these past 2-3 seasons has been amazing when he is on the ice. The problem is he's never on the ice, and he's had health scares and all that, so he needs to take care of himself. That's cool, but unfortunately, this is the only place where I'm a bit worried about the Carolina Hurricanes. But I mean, the rest of the team is firing on all cylinders. Martin Necas has gone berserk. They still have Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, a very good D corps. They're well coached. They're going deep into the playoffs, or at least making the playoffs years in, year out. And to me, I don't know if it's because of the size of the market or because they're not as top heavy as the Leafs, but I feel like we need to talk about the Hurricanes like the Leafs, which means they need to get to a Stanley Cup final. They need to get, they're deep into the process. And I believe they're contenders.
Yeah, I think so. And they demand respect, what they've done. It's amazing. And if you're looking at what makes them contenders, for me, it's when you're looking at the statistics, they rank in the top 10 of nearly every statistical category. So they have their big powerhouse performances from Necas, you've said it, but Svechnikov and also Sebastian Aho, and they need to keep going. But they have excellent defensive play. They have strong special teams. So for me, it's clearly contenders.
And Kev, do you side with us, or is the goaltending enough to push them to pretender territory?
No, I think I'm going to side with you guys. I think they're contenders. And I want to say a little shout out to Yaniv Peretz, who has been working a lot of his air miles recently, going up and down, but not even playing. But yeah, he's like, here's some hope. Oh, no hope. Hope, no hope. No, you're not going to play. Just always making the trip just to be an emergency backup. But yeah, shout out to Yaniv Peretz, former pride of the Lions of Three Rivers in the ECHL, which is always a bit sad to watch.
So we have our first candidate to the Dave Grohl Award. The Carolina Hurricanes are saying they're not like the others. They're not just another pretender, because we're all placing them into contenders territory. Do we need to talk longly about the Panthers? It's right now they're sitting 10th in the league, but there's 5 points between the first place in the league and 10th place in the league. It's going to take more than that for me to push a team that has been to the last 2 Stanley Cup finals and are the champions out of contender territory. There's still no doubt in my mind they're the crown of the East.
Yeah, for me too. They're on the track again, and they have grit, they have chemistry, and they have enough talent to rely on that for another long playoff run. And I feel like we need to fear them, even if they've had long playoff run in the past 3 seasons, and you're like, oh, is this the year that they're starting to get a little tired? I don't think so.
Kev, do you have the Panthers still up there with us?
Yeah, I think the Panthers are there. I think the Panthers have the experience and the veteran needed to maintain that type of status. And I do think that when it counts, they'll be there, right? A couple of years ago, they made it to the final while being just in the playoffs and, of course, won the cup. So I do believe the Panthers are contenders once again.
And there we go, our second candidates to the Dave Grohl Award. Daph, where are the Leafs for you?
For me, I'll put them in pretenders. And even if they're more balanced than ever, and I'm not going to make friends in Toronto here, and even for the first time, defense isn't an issue. They managed with patchwork offense to get going while they had a lot of injuries. And even if it seems like, we have a new mindset under Craig Berube, I feel that the demons of the playoffs are still there and will haunt them.
Kev, where do you have Toronto? You're wearing Toronto blue kind of today. Was that a statement?
It wasn't premeditated, but I'm going to put the Leafs as a contender, though. I do believe the contenders. Because it's not about one individual pieces for me for the Leafs. It's not just Matthews. It's not just Marner. It's not the Nylander bros. Obviously not Alex Nylander. It's not about the goalie either. I think the sum of the part is becoming higher than the individual. So I do believe that the Leafs are contenders for that reason.
I'm siding with Daph, and I am siding with Daph after a long meditation with myself. I had my 20-minute drive to my hockey game last night, and I was like, man, the Leafs, pretender. And then I remembered what I said on the last episode, that if I was going to say that I believe in the Leafs, you guys were going to have to hold me back. And you know what? I'm going to have to doubt the Leafs until they've proven it. And by proving it, I'm not saying this Stanley Cup. Like, at least an Eastern Conference Finals. That's all I'm asking. An Eastern Conference Final. Until then, sorry, Leafs, you are pretending. Whereas, it's the opposite for me with the Edmonton Oilers. Yes, right now they're a wild card team. Yes, it took time again, but finally, they're 7-2-1 in their last 10 games quietly, and they have gone all the way to Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Final. They did it on the shoulders of Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and yes, a very top-heavy lineup. Goaltending is a woes. I'm having a really big problem with Stuart Skinner, but he was good in the play. So you know what? The Oilers, to me, they've done it. They're contenders.
And I'm not going to have so much faith there, Max. I'm putting them as pretenders. I know. And I was wondering, maybe I'm too harsh on them, but I'm just like, they've been too inconsistent for me. And, like we are at the beginning of December, and I'm just like, I don't know if it's looking good downwards. And yeah, it's the one that maybe I needed to change my mind on this one, but I'm like, no, I'm standing with it's going to be pretenders for me.
Okay. Wow. Kevin, where do you side on this?
I side, they're contenders for me because I do believe there's outliers in their statistics. Like the power play is still not firing on all cylinders. They've been struggling also on the PK, and I do think those things over a better data sample of the entire season are going to get better. So for those reasons, they're contenders for me. Also, even if they're a wild card, you really want to play against Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl in the playoffs, really, and that will be a big difference. Exactly, that's what I'm saying. You just need to steal one or two games, and then you're done. So we've seen it happen last year.
Yeah, your boy is out on this one. The only team a team out of the playoffs. Yes, we've put a team currently at the moment of the recording out of the playoffs onto this list, but I feel like they still earn a right to be in this conversation is the Colorado Avalanche, a team you could argue is in a similar situation as the Edmonton Oilers. Top heavy, the big dogs are eating. The problem is they've pushed all the other dogs out of the park for the Colorado Avalanche. Kevin, Colorado, as of right now, pretender or contenders?
Yeah, they're pretenders to me. They're the classic pretender where I don't believe anymore in Jared Bednar. I don't think that mix is going to do well. And Nathan McKinnon, he's a great player. But I don't think he's like the type of leader or the type of player who can put the entire team on his back like a Connor McDavid or like a Sidney Crosby. He is the addendum on the Cole Harbour side. He's not Cole Harbour, right? That's Sidney Crosby. So for those reasons, and because Cale Makar, awesome defenseman. But defensively speaking, look at his plus and minus. It's still a lot of the minus. And a few players of the team is the same. And I think that's the reason why, to me, until they can play on the two ways, until they get better two way of the ice, they're pretenders.
I'm siding with you. No goalies, no nothing, and they've won one playoff round in the last 2 years. Yes, the cup is still there in the back of our mind, but it's not the same team. They've lost too many pieces. Pretenders.
Yeah, for me also. It's like they're not the team that we've saw like from the old days. They are not the team that is consistently strikes fear into you. And yeah, for me, they're also pretenders as of right now.
Let's be real. The only reason they're in the discussion is based on what they did these past few years.
Yeah.
Nothing with what they're doing this year. We're kind of disrespecting some teams that are like, hey, why are we not in discussion right now? Yeah, well, they won. Like, that's the thing. Okay, let's get back in the East right now. And let's talk about the President Trophy winners from last year, the New York Rangers, who started great, but underlying numbers were telling us that the Rangers might not be as good as their record suggested early on. They have only 4 wins in their last 10 games. it is not looking that good for New York right now. The rumblings around possible trades of veteran players last week seems to have shaken thing. I don't know. The vibe is weird. We need a vibe check on the Rangers. I can't believe I'm placing them in pretenders. I love the Rangers. I'm placing them in pretenders right now because there are teams that I am more confident in.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one, Max. I feel like through the first quarter of the season, they haven't looked anything that the team that we've seen in the previous season. They're not getting enough from their big players, which is the two players that have been in the conversation for trade, Zibanejad and Chris Kreider. They're not living up to the expectations, and I feel that what you've said, like the vibes are off. I feel that the management team created a tense atmosphere, and for me, that is not looking good.
Well, Kevin is also wearing Rangers blue technically, so maybe he's going to sign on the Rangers.
Well, you know what? I am, because you never know.
You are?
Yeah. They're contenders to me. You never know when Shesterkin is going to be able to steal a game. And the Russian bread man, Artemi Panarin, will also be very important down the road. And I think those two key players, and it doesn't have to be Zibanejad. It doesn't have to be Kreider. At that point, Panarin is making his teammates better, and I do believe a combination of very high play by Shesterkin and the Breadman, and you will get the Rangers. Could go deep. And of course,
yes, they could.
Yeah, the playoffs is a different type of hockey. The hockey they're playing right now may be a little too fast for the Rangers. Things are slowing down past February, and we'll have another discussion about it.
Oh, we definitely will. And last but not least, down in Texas, the Dallas Stars.
I put them as a contender. I like the way they play. Maybe not, as good as the other team that we've discussed. But as Kev said, like we're in early December and things can change. They have like the powerhouse of goal scoring, and they have a good defensive structure. And I'm looking at this, I'm like, okay, yeah, the loss of Joe Pavelski and, the power play maybe remains as a concern. But I really like this team, the experience that they have, and trying them as contenders. I don't know.
They went to the conference final last year. They have one of the best young goalies in the league. They have depth up front. They have depth in the back. And you could argue they're disappointing because they are third in the Central Division, but they are 16-8.
Yeah.
It's just that the Jets and the Wild have been so surprising. Yeah. And I'm having a tough time when it's all said and done, seeing the Stars lower than the second seed in the Central. To me, this is the ultimate contender in the West.
Yeah, no, I have to agree also, because they're doing this type of run where there's 750 percentage of wins this year, like the winning percentage with their record. And to me, they're doing this without the same production of a Jason Robertson as last year. So they're able to maintain the same amount of winning percentage and same amount of output without that contribution of a Robertson equal to his reputation. So I think that will level off over the next few months. And they, of course, in the Central, you can say they're third in the Central, you can say they're third in the Western Conference, because maybe even third in the league, because the top two teams in the Central, they're top two teams in the league. So yeah.
Exactly. No, I fully agree. The Dallas Stars, to me, are one of the most beautiful team in the National Hockey League right now. We agree on two teams as pretenders, the Washington Capitals and the Colorado Avalanche. You can count us as non-believers. Tell us if we're wrong in the comments. In 15 seconds each, we have agreed on three teams as contenders: the Carolina Hurricanes, the Florida Panthers, and the Dallas Stars. If you had to choose just one team as your favorite, Def, out of those three teams only, Carolina, Florida, Dallas, who is it?
Oh, I will say, it's hard. I will say...
It is.
I will say Dallas.
Wow. Kevin?
I'm going with the bunch of jerks in Carolina.
No, you're
Carolina
not.
Hurricanes.
I wanted to be the Hurricanes, but I'm like, oh, am I being realistic here?
I am going to go just because after 2 Stanley Cup finals, I feel like there might be a little less gas in the tank. I'm going to go Dallas, a slight edge over Florida, who I still feel have more depth at every position than the Hurricanes. So I'm guessing the Dallas Stars is Hyperdrive Hockey's favorite at the quarter mark of the season. Let us know who is your contender, biggest contender at the quarter mark of the season. Let us know who you don't believe in the comments. Now, let's go across Planet Hockey right now on our Coast Takes.
Max, we're about to know who's on the rosters for the Fourth Nation tournament that will be held in February. It's going to be announced tomorrow. And
on Wednesday.
Yeah, on Wednesday. And we're looking, so I'm looking at, I feel that there are still some questions pending upon those rosters. And I'm like, who are Canada's goalie are going to be? And do you have maybe other questions that for you are still pending upon the announcement that is going to be made on Wednesday?
Yeah. Well, I feel like it was reported by Pierre Lebrun, I think, that Aiden Hill and Bennington are in. So it's just a question of who's third wheel. I stand by what I said. You bring on Marc-André Fleury just for the ride. It's a glorified all-star game. Bring on the freaking
Absolutely.
flower. I don't care. And I also respectfully don't care that much who's third wheel other than that, because when do you see a third goalie in that type of tournament? Never. I'm curious, guys, to see how teams will decide what they do with depth players. Do they just bring in the best of the best and figure it out? Do they bring, I don't know, there were rumblings that Tom Wilson could make Team Canada. Is Chris Kreider still a complete enough player to do Team USA? What will Finland and Sweden do? Although maybe they don't have those same questions, but that is one thing that I'm curious to see. Like, do you just bring better kids with a lot of firepower? Like I don't know, Alexis Lafrenière, Connor Bedard. You know what? I'm going to throw in Macklin Celebrini's name in there. If you're throwing Connor Bedard's name in there, I'm just throwing it in. I'm throwing Macklin Celebrini's name in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, what are they going to do with all of that? This is one of the big questions I have for Wednesday's reveal.
Yeah, I feel like I'm curious to see what the strategy is going to be, because this is no Olympics. So are you giving the chance to some kids? What are you bringing?
And are you preparing the Olympics or not?
Mm-hmm.
Is one of the questions.
I feel that this is what they need to do, but this is just me. Maybe I'm, because I like to be, you know how I like to be prepared. This is maybe just me.
You know what? If you're preparing the Olympics, Team USA needs to bring Brock Faber.
Oh.
To me, there is no doubt in my mind that by this time next year, Brock Faber is a lock for Team USA. So if you're thinking Olympics, you bring Brock Faber. And of course, here in Montreal, we're watching Cole Caulfield. I feel like he's done enough to be there. The problem is that Cole Caulfield is regarded as such a
goal scorer.
A pure goal scorer, a one-trick pony, that on such a loaded Team USA, like you're going to have Austin Matthews. You're going to have Kyle Connor. You're going to have guys like the big question might be Jason Robertson or Cole Caulfield. Kev just talked about Jason Robertson cold season. Okay, but Jason Robertson is what, 6'3"? That will have weight in the balance, like figuratively, of course. And, well, technically, literally speaking too. So these are all good questions that I can't wait to see. Just the strategy of the different teams. I personally am a big fan of bring the best players and then figure it out. But that's just me.
Yeah, and we gonna have plenty to discuss on our Friday episode when rosters are gonna be revealed. Patrik Laine, Max, we are Montreal fans are finally getting what they wanted since the beginning, is Patrik
They
Laine
are.
playing for this team. And as we speak, he was seen on the morning skate on the right side of Dak and Slavkovsky. He missed a bunch of times, but do you like this line? Do you like where they've make him play? And what are your expectations for his first game in Montreal?
I know that Kirby Doc is having a heck of a disappointing season, and to a lesser extent, Uri Slavkovsky too. But that was the line I wanted to see at the start of the season. One of my take was, why are we assuming that Slavkovsky, Caulfield, Suzuki is a lock to play every single game together? Put the three big men together, because they are big men. They're all 6'3" and up. And I'm so glad. Now, you know, the little bit of cold water on it is that Slav is not as good as he could be. Doc is not even close as to how good he could be. And Patrik Laine is literally playing for the first time in a competitive game in almost a year. His last game was December 14th, 2023. He scored a goal in that game. So it's going to take time. He looked rusty preseason, and I was a big believer in Laine ahead of the season because he has been injury prone these past few seasons, but last year was the outlier. What I mean by this is, go look back the precedent years. Yes, he played a little amount of games, but the production on a point per game basis was there. It's just last year that it wasn't there. But now, a full year without playing, it's going to take some time. But I am so, like, Martin St. Louis basically just said, you wanted it? Here you go. Like, the three big dogs together, and I'm going to be scotch on my TV watching this on Tuesday night.
Yeah, against the Islanders is going to be interesting to see. And I'm like, you know, they have nothing to lose. So bringing them together, let's see what it's doing. And we could discuss that also on the Friday episode. Max, we talked about it last week. And finally, the David Jiricek drama has finally come to an end. He was traded to the Minnesota Wild less than 2 years after being drafted, 6th overall. And when we see what the Wild gave for him, which is Damon Hunt, the defensive prospect, they have a conditional first-round pick in 2025, 2026 third and fourth round pick, and 2027 second-round pick. What are your thoughts about this first blockbuster trade of the season?
Cutter Gauthier, David Jiricek, Matthew Savoie, Roger McGuirty. That's 4 players of the first half of the 22 draft traded already. Roger McGuirty has 3 NHL games to his name. Matthew Savoie has 1 NHL game to his game. I feel like in Matthew Savoie it's a bit different, but then Cutter Gauthier, of course, had 0 NHL game to his game when he got traded. He was still in college. Refused to play for the Flyers. Now, I don't know. I feel like it's odd. We knew this wasn't the best draft class. Like, I mean, Slavkovsky, Nemec, Cooley, Wright, and even I feel like Jiricek all at some point were in talk maybe to be drafted first overall. I don't know. I feel like it's weird. It's weird how who is it? It's Tom Brady recently who talked about the fact that teams don't know how to develop quarterbacks in the NFL no more. They're like putting them on the field already, and then they're like, nope, not good enough. Out. When you look in the history of the game, yes, like you have Peyton Manning who comes in like a loaded generational talents on the field right away. He still has to this day the record for the most interception thrown by a rookie. Every year he makes a joke. He looks at a stud young QB and he's like, hey, feel free to break my record. Like, I almost sometimes feel like Peyton Manning in today's NFL the Colts would have moved on from him quickly when he became actually one of the best quarterback of all time. Like, it's a bit of a rush power. It's just, I'm curious. Like, is it the players who feel like they have too much power? Like Jiricek is like, yeah, you know what? It doesn't fit here. I want out. I don't know. It's kind of weird. I do feel it's a good trade for the Wild, though, because of the presence of Brock Faber. This is turning into a Brock Faber-centric podcast.
You could have, put some glasses on. But yeah, if we're looking at this, you're like, okay, maybe this is a selling high for the Blue Jackets for a guy you expected to take, a major role in the NHL and never found a way to establish himself. But you're looking for the Wild and you're like, okay, they've decided to go all in, but they will have, top 4 defensemen for the next few years and maybe extending their window with this move.
Yeah. And they didn't pay a big price because they gave a conditional first round pick, a fourth and a third round pick in 2026.
Late.
Yeah, and Damon Hunt. So why not? And I was joking about Brock Faber, but what I mean by this is David Jiricek is a big guy with a big shot, but struggles on D. Brock Faber to me, he has the potential to be the Drew Doughty of his generation. 50-ish point player, but one of the most complete defender in the league. You're gonna have Zeev Buim on the other side. I can't wait to see. I'm convinced that Buim Faber is going to be one of the best pair in the league for years to come. Maybe Roman Josi, Shea Weber type back in Nashville before Weber was traded to Montreal. So last week, I said I didn't want to see Montreal trade for Jiricek, but for a while, it's actually a very good trade, in my opinion.
Yeah, you're looking it's a player with huge question mark and little experience, but it feels like the reward, it's kind of, it can outweighs the risk of this decision. I'm really with you on this one. I wanted to we've talked a little bit about Ovi, who's back on skates 2 weeks after suffering a broken leg. And we've said we talked about how the Leafs were doing good, even if there were a lot of injured players. And we're looking at the Caps and we're like, are we surprised of how well they're doing without their captain?
A little bit for me. Curious to hear Kev on this. A little bit and here's why, just a little bit. Ovi was having such a start to this season. I was curious about how the morale was going to be hit. And then it's Ovi. I don't know how he is around the team. Of course, you're less around the team when you're injured, but Buddy's out there on the ice taking laps 2 weeks later. He was seen courtside at the Wizard. Clearly the morale is high on Ovi. I don't know what he puts in that Coca-Cola. I do want to know. But they have 4 wins in a row. They're 4-2 overall without without Ovi. And to me, it's just that every player that needed to step up have. Wilson and Strome, 6 points. Jacob Chikrin, a 7 point in 6 games without Ovi. McMichael, Carlson, 5 points each. Lars Eller has been very decent for this team since his comeback. And you know what is... when you look back at the acquisition of the Cap this summer, I remember that the consensus was, that probably won't be enough, but it's, to try and make a push with Ovi, that's decent. Jacob Chikrin, Pierre-Luc Dubois, and Jacob Chikrin is turning into a steal for the Caps right now.
So is Pierre-Luc Dubois, right? Pierre-Luc Dubois is having a resurgence with the Capitals?
Yeah, to me, the only reason I'm not on you with this is because of the salary.
Yeah, well, for sure. Well,
I might be too severe, though. I agree.
The contract is a contract.
But he fits well.
Yeah. The one thing I want to say, you were curious to know, when you don't have a big, what I call talisman players, when you don't have those type of players that you look for on the ice or any sport, right? In soccer, if you don't have Messi in your team, well, the play will just organically play out the way it should, and the opportunities are still going to be there. You're just not going to look for the finisher. So, example, the Capitals, the goal opportunities are still there. You're just not trying to feed Ovi all the time. So you're getting maybe an even higher goal output. I have to do the math, but an even higher, if you don't want to look at goals, just the amount of high danger chances are probably even higher without Ovi because you're not looking to feed the monster. The monster is the team itself. So I think maybe that's part of the reason why. But that's always short term, though. Long term, it might be different, but short term, we're seeing the result with the White Capitals.
Yeah, it's maybe a good thing to see him, be back on his skate after 2 weeks. We've said he could be out for 4 to 6 weeks, so maybe it could be 4 weeks.
It's going to be 3.
Top. But I mean, he's made out of steel. I really need to know what he's I don't know.
There was a legendary J.R. Smith quote about LeBron. I'm pretty sure it's J.R. Smith. He said that guy wasn't born. He was made in a Gatorade lab. Well, Ovi was made in the lab too. A different lab, but he was made in the lab. Yeah, he was made in
Russia.
the lab.
So we're wondering.
Oh, yeah. He's the Winter Soldier, actually. He's a freaking Winter Soldier. That's what he is.
Oh, yeah. He's a Yeti. We're looking, Max, at Team Canada, who announced their selection roster for the camp of the 2025 World Juniors. And, Canadians are looking to bounce back after failing to reach a podium last year. But there were maybe curious choices in there, choices that not seem to receive unanimous support. And are you doubtful when you're looking at who we invited to this camp?
I'm not a prospect expert enough to be doubtful. I just thought it was really surprising to see that 5 of the last top 10 picks were available for Team Canada and none of them were invited. I say available because, of course, Macklin Celebrini could have been invited, but he's tearing it up in the NHL. So Beckett Seneca, Caden Lindstrom, Iginla, I was going to say Jerome for a second, Tej Iginla, Carter Yakemchuk, and Zane Parak, all not invited. That is crazy.
Yeah.
There are other first round pick like Michael Age, Paraskak, Boisvert. So it's just surprising to see the depth of Team Canada. Some studs that are available for next draft have been invited. Porter Martone and Matthew Schaefer. And of course, the sensation Gavin McKenna. We always say it's a tournament for 19 years old. I'm just always surprised. Usually when you get that early first round pedigree, and Beckett Seneca was a reach at third for the Ducks, but he's tearing it up. He's having a very good season. So I'm just surprised to see all those big names left off the table. But as I said, it's the depth of Team Canada.
Yeah. And I was talking about, a friend of ours who's way more expert in the prospects than we are. And he was saying the same thing. Like, the trend is we are bringing 19 years old and also physical players to balance the lineup. But it's still it was a surprise for a lot of them. And if you're looking at also the representation from the QMJHL, it was the lowest representation in 35 years. We have Ethan Gauthier and Matthew Cataford. The last time it happened, it was in 1990. It was Stéphane Fizet and Patrice Brisebois who were there. But if you're looking at it, you're like, okay, the fact that no players from the Q has been claimed in the first rounds of the last 2 NHL drafts has set the stage for this. And but it's still lack of representation. And I feel that this is maybe a warning for Hockey Quebec. And just like we maybe need to look at our development and make something about it. But this is just my 2-piece.
Yeah, we've needed to see this as warnings for a long time, if you want my honest opinion. But hey, what do I know?
Max, we've talked a little bit about the Jets, but is this the time to maybe look at them and starting to think maybe they need to refuel a little bit? And
it's interesting because I was curious to see, do you remember, what was it, 2 years ago when the Bruins had that record season? Mm-hmm. Kind of out of nowhere. And we were kind of expecting them to break. Never did until the playoffs. And I was wondering, are the Jets going to be the Bruins of this year, finish so far ahead of everybody, or will the inevitable happen? And finally, the inevitable happened. It's just 3 games. They're 4-6 now in their last 10 games. They were not going to stay atop the NHL or maybe they could have, but they were not going to fire on all cylinders for 82 games. But it's crazy to see, right? They're still 18-7, and suddenly the Wild are ahead of them in terms of point percentage, the same amount of point with 1 less game. That Central Division is absolutely crazy.
Oh, yeah. And it's going to be a battle till the end of the season, I fear.
I don't know about you, but I kind of want the Jets to be as good as they've been, but I really like persist in saying that they're going to need to do some key acquisition to get there.
Yeah. So maybe this is where they get their fuel back. It was an exciting start of the PWHL season. And if we're talking about we fuel till the end of the season, I feel like, we are set to have a tight season in the PWHL. We've talked about how team added some talent, and every team did add talent. And we're looking at the first few games. One game it finished in overtime. It was New York against Minnesota. New York won. We're looking at the game Montreal against Ottawa. It was a shootout win for Montreal, and you're like, ooh, it's gonna be interesting because last year it was also super tight, and it's set to be really tight games and all over again this year.
Yeah, I watched the whole Montreal versus Ottawa game, and Emrance Marshmeyer was amazing in net. Aaron Frankel was sensational in the playoffs, did the same thing for Boston too. I'd like to see more goals this year. I want to see more goals, just a little bit, because goalies are sensational. I was looking at the power play for Montreal in that game, and Kevin was talking about the Ovi a second ago. You know how like you're searching for some players, and I do feel like, and Montreal like it had some good depth scoring in that game. You know, of course you have Marie-Philippe Poulin. Of course, she's the GOAT and she's still at top of her game and you want to feed her. But I do feel like sometimes they're forcing plays to key players when there are passing lanes that are open that maybe could open up the scoring. I don't know. That's just like my one small observation. But other than that, Toronto and Montreal came in strong. The key players came in strong. People were in the stand. It was beautiful to see. And it's beautiful to see those jerseys on the ice.
Absolutely. Oh, I really liked the Minnesota Frost on the ice. Like we were talking about, like, was this all just like street style or was it for hockey? I really liked it. And for the game between Toronto and Boston, it was also tight until the very end. You know, like Hannah Miller scored a game-winning goal with 98 seconds remaining in the third period. So it would be a tight seat. And I'm with you on this one. And I feel like this is what we've tried to do with the no escape rule, the new rule, to just like see more goals happening. And I just want to put a word on the partnership between Sarah Fillier in New York and Alex Carpenter, who seems like has already paid dividends.
Yeah.
Carpenter scored twice, including the overtime winner, added an assist, but Fillier was the complicit of the two Carpenter's goal. And I look at them and I like, oh, this is a very dangerous duo, and they will need to be watched closely by the Montreal defense on Wednesday night.
Yeah. Of course, it's very small sample, one game for each team, but I saw that Toronto team play, and I feel like they're going to be a menace.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not saying this with a lot of joy.
Even without Natalie Spooner, who was
It's
last
crazy.
year's MVP. Yeah. Okay, Max, we're going to close this episode with a little goalie ranking.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, Daph, and we're going to go from 5 to first for the second edition of our power ranking.
But I want
a bit of changes.
Yeah.
A bit of changes from last month because, well, some kept up to speed, some went down. And we're going to start at number 5. We're going to start at number 5 with Anthony Stolarz. I had him at number 4 last month. I don't feel like he was as strong as he was in the first month of the season, but he is doing his thing in Toronto. To me, the surprising part of Stolarz is that he has only 7 wins in 13 games, which to me is kind of surprising considering he's playing for Toronto. Toronto is good. And he is good too. Still fourth in the league in goal against average at 2.33, tied third in the league and in the save percentage at 921. A very respectable 8.56 goal save above expected. That's not in the league. But to me, the key for Stolars, 10 quality start in 13 games. So he hasn't been amazing in every game, but he's being consistent.
Yeah, and if you're looking at who you've put in on fourth position, Lucas Dostal, who's been like maybe higher than he was in your previous ranking, Max.
Well, Lucas Dostal came out swinging. To me, was the biggest surprise of the first month in the season. Maybe all position. Like, I did not see that guy coming. And so I had him at 5 because I was like, okay, there was a bit of a fluke here. There was no fluke. It was absolutely no fluke. Of course, the wins aren't as there as they were at the start of the season. He plays for the freaking Ducks. Like, he's not gonna have. He's 29th in the league for win, and 23rd in goal against average. But he's tied third in save percentage and first in goal save above expected. 10 quality starts in 15 games. This is amazing. Only one really bad start. So that's a game in which you have less than 850 of save percentage behind such a bad defense. That is amazing. And I'm sorry, Lucas Dostal. I thought you were a fluke. My boy, you are no fluke.
We've been talking about how good the Minnesota Wild was, and it's maybe because Philip Gustafsson is having also a good season. He had 1 goal. He had his first NHL goal also.
Yeah, maybe that should have pushed him first just for that. But he's really been given the keys to the net this season. There is no more alternating between him and Flower. When Flower is in there, he's amazing. And this might be just a little, because he could have been higher. He could have been as high as number 2, Gustafsson. But the fact that Fleury also is so good when he's in net made me take a look. And the Wild are 4th in the league for expected goal against. So they have good defense. Doesn't matter. Philip Gustafsson is doing his thing. He's 1st in the league for goal against average, 1st in the league for save percentage, 7th in the league for goal save above expected, 16 quality start out of 18. He's just balling. He's completely balling. We've talked about Ottawa Senators goalie situation many times on this podcast. Yeah. Philip Gustafsson used to be a Senator. So was Joey Daccord, by the way, who is just unranked in my standing, by the way.
And it just make me saying that maybe Ottawa Senators are the goalie cemetery, but this is up for another discussion. If we're looking at number 2, someone has gained a position, and it's Jake Ottinger. Why he's made a step up from the other ranking, Max?
Well, number 1, because unfortunately, Igor Shesterkin, who was there, has taken a drop. At first, I didn't thought he was going to drop that much, but unfortunately, the past few games, and he's still Shesty's still there. He's close. Like, I had Shesty Vermelka quietly having a season for the Utah. I was going to say Utes. I don't know why. The Utah Hockey Club.
Yeah.
The Utah Utes is the college team. Oh my God, the NCAA team. And Dustin Wolf, too, is having an amazing start to his career. But, Jake Ottinger has been a stud for a long time now. He is a stud to start this season. 13 wins. That's 2nd in the league. 5th in the league in goal against average. 4th in the league for goal save above expected. So it's going to take another strong month of Philip Gustafsson, who went from unranked to number 3. Another strong month of Lucas Dostal to get ahead of Jake Ottinger. And because of Shesty's downfall, with quotation mark, he's not that bad. To me, it felt really normal to have Jake Ottinger at number 2. And there's absolutely no doubt in my mind on Wednesday that he's going to be announced not only as one of Team USA's goalie. I feel like he is a lock as the backup and not the third man in.
And I'm expecting maybe Dustin Wolf to make an entrance in the next ranking at number 1, Max.
She loves herself some Dustin Wolf.
He's my man now. He's I'm beside him and I'm cheering for him. And who do you have at number 1, Max?
Well, despite his team's recent struggle, how do you go against Connor Hellebuck? 15 wins,
Yeah.
second in the league for goal against average, second in the league for save percentage, second in the league for goal save above expected, 3 shutouts. He's the key to the Winnipeg Jets. There hasn't been a back-to-back Vezina winner in 15 years. I think this could be the season with Connor Hellebuyck. It's crazy to me because if you had told me 5 years ago, I would have told you that Andrei Vasilevsky is going to end his career with multiple Vezina trophies, and it's turning out that it's the other guy from his draft class, Connor Hellebuyck, who could do it, pull it off, and have 3 Vezinas. It's crazy. Bob has 2, and other than that, go take a look in the salary cap era. Goalies with 3 Vezinas, Brother has done it, and he technically, I don't consider him a salary cap goalie because he was there way before, but he won his Vezinas, most of them in the salary cap era. So Connor Hellebuyck could pull it off, and he's on his way. I don't see him choking in the regular season. Some people are going to say he will do it in the playoffs. Yeah, naysayers. Well, they have arguments. But in the regular season, it's going to take some very good season from any of those guys. I could see Philip Gustafsson, because of his importance to the Wild right now, make a push. But it's going to take something big to push out Connor Hellebuyck this year.
Yeah, just considering how he performed since the beginning and consistently. And I expect him to be number 1 at your goalie power ranking all year long. But I feel like he can definitely win this Vezina trophy. And just before we're closing this episode, just saying that I feel like emotions are going to run high between the game in Calgary, the visit of the Blue Jackets at the Saddle Dome, and the honor of Johnny Gaudreau. We know how he meant to this team. So, we're going to look at this really emotional game. His family is going to be there. And, going to get really emotional, I feel. And not good emotions. We're watching sports because we love getting excited and joy all around, but this is real sad for this one.
Yeah, I'm ready to get hurt again because that ceremony in Columbus at the start of the season had me teared up, seeing Sean Monahan and then scoring a goal, pointing at the banner. Of course, seeing Johnny Gaudreau's widow, but sports helps us heal. Johnny Gaudreau meant a lot to the Calgary Flames in his seasons there. And shout out to the Flames. I don't know if you saw this, they made a bench out of all the sticks that were brought to the memorial. So shout out to them for bringing out the family, having Guy Gaudreau on the ice too. Like you said, it's tough, but I feel like we have to watch. We have to watch and honor his memory. So even if you just catch up later on tonight on the replays, on the highlights, make sure you catch a glimpse of this, just because Johnny Gaudreau and his brother deserve it.
Absolutely. And so thank you very much, guys. This is it for us. We're going to see you back on Friday. If you like it and if you want to subscribe, hit that subscribe button on YouTube, and you can follow us along on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thank you very much, hockey fans around the world, because nonetheless around the world you are listening to this Hyperdrive Hockey podcast. My name is Daphne Malbeuf, alongside with Max Venoot and Kevin Laramie, and we'll see you again on Friday, my friends.